Welcome back to the Full Force Fathers podcast, episode number 95. David, is conference championship week. It is awesome. What is going on?
Not much. I am still thawing out from the last week here in Nashville. Not my favorite time of year. I'll just say that. But happy episode 95.
Yeah, we're getting closer to 100. We're getting closer to the Great Ones episode, which we can't wait for. We're going to get into all things Tennessee weather here in a minute. But as always, welcome to the show. Thanks for tuning in. We had a good weekend of football, divisional games. Really, only one of the games was pretty much a sure thing. The other three were toss-ups, and that game obviously was the Ravens. But we're going to get into conference championships. We're going to get into Tennessee weather. But first, Dave, why don't you start us off with famous number 95s?
Yeah, this is a short list, man. I tried to do some research here. It's really short. There was only one Hall of Famer that stood out in the NFL. His name Richard Dent. He retired, and he was third all-time in sacks at that time. He had 137 and a half sacks over his career, four-time first or second team All-Pro. He was a four-time Pro Bowler. He was Super Bowl MVP. In that Super Bowl 20, he had 3 tackles, 1.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and he led the league in sacks twice. So Richard Dent, he made the list today, and he was the only Hall of Famer in the NFL. I know you have one that you'd like to talk about too, so why don't you hit that one?
I did not know that Richard Dent was a Super Bowl MVP. Did you know that before the statistics?
No. Nope. Crazy. It's very rare that a defensive player will get the Super Bowl MVP. The only one that I knew that had, and I forget who it was. It was somebody on the Dallas Cowboys in 1995 won it. And I forget exactly who it was, but shame on me. But yeah, Richard Dent, Super Bowl MVP.
I know it.
The stat line too.
Dude, it's insane.
2 forced fumbles and a sack and a half. It's good. What's that?
I said, I know one from the Tampa Bay team when they beat the Raiders. Remember the whole Gruden saga? They traded Gruden to Tampa, blah, 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 blah. Dexter Jackson was the cornerback who had 2 interceptions in that blowout win against the Raiders, against Rich Gannon and the Raiders. And he was a Super Bowl MVP too, which was cool. But no, the second guy that I wanted to mention was Myles Garrett. The dude is a beast, freak of nature. As long as he stays on the trajectory, if people could ever look past his one glaring problem that he did was that game against the freaking Steelers when he took off his helmet and he smashed Mason Rudolph in the head with it in the fight. Remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that. It was pretty gruesome. That was a pretty low move on his part.
Yeah, but I mean the guy's a sack stud. He's hard to defend. I would imagine that he's young. He stays on this trajectory. We could be talking him in the upper echelon of all-time great defensive ends. But really, that's it. I did a little research. Nothing really great in 95 across all sports. No notable names in any other real sports. You did the same. We both kind of cross-referenced each other always to see if we miss somebody just by happenstance. But no, 95 definitely not making any list in terms of tournament numbers. But we need to talk after the Bible verse about your Tennessee weather. But I have a very good Bible verse today, and I think it's pretty fitting. It doesn't tie into the show, but the way that I read it, and I was like, you know what? It's really, really fitting. And it comes from Proverbs. I haven't hit Proverbs in a while. But Proverbs 22:16. One who oppresses the poor to increase his wealth, and one who gives gifts to the rich, both come to poverty. Now, the first one who oppresses the poor to increase his wealth. Like, is that not fitting for today's Democratic Party?
Oh man, no kidding. Is that not what's happening across the world right now with the elites of this world?
Right?
I mean, goodness gracious, that could not be more fitting. Yeah.
Yeah. It's that's why I saw it when I was reading my Proverbs. I'm like, man, this is a good one to bring up on the show because it just ties into where we're at as a world right now. Like, dude, all these rich mother truckers, dude, they just oppress the poor. I tied it into politicians because politicians are, what do they give promises, right? Promise, and they never come through. And then you vote for them and they do nothing for you. And then they just somehow get richer and richer and richer. So that's why I brought up Proverbs 22 today, because it is very true. The one who oppresses the poor to increase his wealth comes to poverty. It will catch up to him in the end. We can only hope. But anyways, let's talk about Tennessee weather. Why don't you give us a rundown of the weather in Tennessee for the last week plus?
Yeah, week plus. It's been terrible. So, not yesterday or 2 days ago, Sunday from last week, the week of the Cowboy game, the Cowboys Green Bay game, which should have been my telltale sign what was about to come for the next week. It started snowing at about 5 o'clock at night, started coming down a little bit. And everybody had told me, when snow comes, this place shuts down. It's like they can't handle it. I'm like, well, whatever. We'll see when it happens. And we have Case's car. It's all-wheel drive. We still have it from our time in Connecticut, so I wasn't really concerned about it. So we were at a party watching the game. Snow starts coming down. We end up leaving, get home, no problems. Monday was Martin Luther King Day, so the kids had no school, and it snowed. It snowed a lot for Tennessee. We ended up getting about 6 inches where we are, which not a big deal. 6 inches of snow, typically back in Connecticut, I mean, that's any given day you could get 6 inches of snow, so whatever. End of the night, snowstorm ends. I'm out there. Casey and I are out there. We're shoveling the driveway, shoveling the sidewalk, because that's what you do, right? That's what you do. You go out and you shovel. Nobody else does that. Not a single person. They have 2 plow trucks for the entire county. The county here is probably close to the size of Connecticut. So it's just absurd. So the roads, only the main roads get plowed. Everything else just gets packed down by cars driving on it. So everywhere you go, sidewalk, streets, about 2 inches of solid ice, absolute ice. And what they normally say happens, it warms up right here, typically after a snowstorm. Not this time. We were down in the negatives. I'm running faucets in the middle of the night to make sure pipes don't freeze and burst. I mean, this shit was freaking cold. It was so cold here the last week. We were down sub-zero. I think at one point it was -7. It felt like was like -15. And what a great time to do 75 hard, right? I mean, it couldn't be any better. So it has been a miserable week. And now, as we record this, the kids still aren't in school. We are a week plus after the storm. Kids still not in school. The gym has still been closed up until this morning. They opened it at 8. How nice of them to open it at 8 for everybody. But kids still aren't in school as of this recording on Monday, before our Tuesday release date. And the rest of the week, it's supposed to rain the entire time, and we'll be up to 60, but rain. So I just don't know anymore. It's been a miserable week. It's going to be a miserable next week. I hate it.
I try not to laugh, and it's hard not to laugh because, as you know, we always take digs at each other when it comes to weather. It's something that we've always done. When I moved to Virginia and you were still in Arizona, you used to take shots because it would be 75 there and Arizona would be 20, or Virginia would be 20. And I couldn't help but find myself, every time I'd call you, it would be, why can't I hear you? Muffled voice. Because you had 3 face masks on, 2 winter hats, 6 layers of clothes on, because it was so cold and miserable. Your fucking beard was frozen. Your shoulder pads were fucking frozen.
Yeah.
I mean, that was just astounding to me. The kids not being in school for over a week now. Andine and I were talking about last night, because I remember you texted me and you're like, guess what? No school tomorrow. Andine was like, oh, really? I'm like, babe, you don't understand. They missed all of last week. So now this is 10 straight days where they have no school. I said, that includes weekends. But the thing that blows my mind, you brought up, they have 2 plow trucks for the entire county. And I guess if you follow the agenda of global warming, then it makes sense, because everything is just burning up and we're not, we're just going to all melt and the sun's going to kill us all because of global warming. But in a county like yours, I'm not saying it's the richest county in America. It's not the poorest county in America. It's a middle-class county, maybe middle, upper-class county. How can they be so unprepared for winter? Last year when you were there, you had temps like there were 20 below zero. You didn't get the snow, but you still had 20 below. So how can a county be so unprepared for something that can absolutely happen at any time?
Yeah, I don't understand. I mean, we don't pay a lot in taxes, so I'm sure that has something to do with it. And the fact of the matter is, what they normally say is it usually melts the same week. This seemed to be an anomaly. From what everybody said, this is like a once every 10-year sort of thing. That being said, how do you not have some plow trucks, um, some salting equipment, something? Like, it's crazy to me. I mean, and the fact that I am amazed at how unprepared everybody is. I told Casey this on our walk the other day. Man, people around here are fucked if all goes to shit. When it all goes to shit, thankfully, I feel like I'm pretty well prepared for things, but most people couldn't find their way out of a paper bag. I mean, no one has shovels. No one could shovel their driveway or their sidewalk. People didn't even know how to get snow off their car. Like, it is astonishing to me at the level of like unpreparedness. People were posting on on social media asking for rides to the store because they needed baby formula. Like, are you serious? You didn't go out and like get enough baby formula to be able to make it through the storm? I mean, clearly these people don't have enough to eat at home, enough water. Like, they're all fucked. They're fucked. And you realize, like, when people don't deal with it all the time, they have no idea what to do and they're completely handicapped in a situation. So let that be known to people. If it's something that you don't normally do, find a way to be prepared for it. Otherwise, you're going to be like everybody else and you're going to be screwed.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. Go read Prepared by Mike Glover. He talks about weather and
That's awesome.
weather catastrophes happening that cause major problems. And it's funny we were talking about your weather because we were in Colorado a few weeks ago visiting my brother, and to just see this stark contrast where my brother's in Colorado, 9,000-10,000 feet, it snows every day. The roads are just consistently covered in snow. They never are not covered in snow. They're just covered in snow. So everyday life just continues. It doesn't matter. You
Yeah.
wake up, 4 inches of powder. You wake up, a foot of snow. You wake up, 2 inches of snow. The roads are covered all the time, and you just live that way. And it's just stark contrast to somewhere like you are, where snow is not common. But the handicap that it puts on people is just absurd. Like, I mean, it's crazy. Like, that was full blown catastrophe. People literally were like, they had no food in their house. They couldn't go to the store. You showed me some FaceTimes when you were out working out or doing your driveway. Your driveway looked like it was heated compared to all the other driveways because you had it so clean. Because from our Connecticut days, we're used to shoveling sidewalks or spotless. For those that are watching or listening, Dave's driveway and sidewalk looked like it was freshly poured concrete because it was so clean. And then as soon as where his property line ends, all of a sudden it was just 2.5 inches of ice and snow on top because nobody else touched their sidewalks. His main road was clear, but every side street in his area neighborhood was just covered a week after it had snowed. That's what I still can't understand.
Yeah. Yeah, and all you had to do, it took me 2 hours to do the driveway and the sidewalk. That's all it took, 2 hours. And I had an entire week of not slipping on my driveway, not slipping on my sidewalk when I went to get the mail, none of it. It was all taken care of because of 2 hours worth of work. Like, come on, people. It's not that hard. But I'll tell you what, man, the hardest part about doing the outdoor workouts, it wasn't the cold. The cold was something, but as long as you're prepared, you've got the clothes for it, like you can tolerate it. The problem was walking, like actually taking steps, running or walking or rucking, whatever I was doing. It was one of those things like you felt like you were always going to slip and fall at any given point because there was no firm place to put your foot. It was all ice everywhere. Like this is the way I equate it. It's like looking at a hockey rink and seeing everything underneath the ice. Like, you know how you look at the hockey rink and you see like the lines underneath the rink. Like, that's what it looks like on the roads and in the parking lots. Like, all the lines are below all the ice. It's the craziest thing. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's absolutely absurd to think that's what your situation was. The kids not being in school, the no plow trucks. I mean, nuts. Like, and I was listening to I listen to country radio. Obviously, Nashville's the king of country music, right? Like, people couldn't get to work. Like, people didn't go to work. You worked from home a few days. Like, people, things just were closed.
And everybody was okay with it. I know, it's crazy. Speaking of country music and people working, guess who was doing some Uber rides for people?
I'll just say a country star. I'll say Luke Bryan. Give me that's a country star.
Kane Brown. He was out just doing Uber for people, taking people to work wherever they needed to go. People were getting in the car and they're like, "Wait a minute, you're Kane Brown."
Do you think he actually was taking money?
Cool. You never know what you're going to get in the Nashville area. No. He was just doing it.
Do you think he would claim that on his taxes?
That's pretty cool. Maybe. Never know.
Anyways, so that's the weather saga for the last 10 days in Tennessee. Dave has survived. He's still there. His beard is getting longer. He's got a lot more grays in it. He's still wearing hoodies, so it's still cold there. But I mean, just talk about the absolute kick in the nuts. You get the most miserable cold snow winter, and then all of a sudden you're getting a week straight of rain. It's just the cake. It's literally the icing on the cake.
I know. It is. Just kick me while I'm down.
So, anyways, let's move on. Let's move on to conference championship games in the National Rigged Football League. I said it. Oops. 100%. There's got to be some conspiracies out there. Believe it or not, there's always a couple calls that make you go, This weekend, though, kind of went against my theory of it being rigged and Dave's theory of being rigged because there wasn't that many calls that there was no calls that decided outcomes of games or anything of that nature. But overall,
it didn't need to.
True, it didn't need to. Buffalo's kicker missed the kick. Jordan Love threw the pick. You're right, it didn't need to.
Yeah,
but
the Ravens handled business, so there's nothing there that needed to be worked out by the officials. Okay, I'd argue to say that the San Francisco game had a little bit of weirdness added to the end of it to make sure San Francisco got over the top. Congratulations on making the conference championship. I take nothing away from that. But I will say some of the things that happened at the end of the game were really strange. And then the Bills and the Chiefs. And if you're anything like me, I don't think either of those teams are going to be in the Super Bowl this year. I think it's the Ravens, and I'll explain why a little bit later. So that game they just let play out, which was cool because you get to see a great football game when shit just gets to be played out. Man, dude, feel bad for the Bills, though. Goodness gracious. Wide right is just an all too familiar phrase in Buffalo, and it just continues again.
Yeah, Buffalo. I mean, I look at it from a Josh Allen perspective. He's an unbelievable talent, unbelievable football player. But this is now the last 4 years they haven't gotten out of the divisional round. 3 times to the Chiefs. 3 times they beat him in the regular season. 3 times they beat him. They can't beat him in the postseason. Last year was Burrow and the Bengals. And it's just, if I was a Bills fan, man, I would just feel, this is why, as I've gotten older, you too, it is what it is. You grow up, you mature, you don't get so tied to a football team or a player or anything like just like we're both guilty of it when we were younger. You get so just emotional and attached and angry and break things and blah, 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 blah. But those poor fans of Buffalo, man, they're never 4 years of Jim Kelly, never winning the Super Bowl after going to it all 4 years. Josh Allen can't get over the hump of Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. I mean, and we were talking about this last night. This was their best chance of all the times to get into the next round, to get to the conference championship. This was their chance. This was the worst of the 6 Kansas City Chief AFC championship teams. This is their 6th in a row. This is the worst in terms of weapons and things like that. And this was probably Buffalo's best. I know they had a little downspout in the middle of the season. They were 500, but they turned it on late. They won the division. They got the 2 seed, but they finally had a top-tier running back, top-tier tight end to go with Diggs. I know Gabe Davis was hurt, and this one was at home where Kansas City would just looked off all year long, and they still couldn't get over the hump. And I just brought up this point to you last night when we were texting back and forth. I don't want to say this because it's just, nothing's a sure thing. But Josh Allen may never win a Super Bowl in Buffalo. He may never even get to a conference championship in Buffalo with the way it's going. The AFC is so stacked with quarterbacks versus the NFC. It's not even close. They have Mahomes. Burrow will be back next year. Aaron Rodgers will be back next year. You have Lamar Jackson, who was the best quarterback and is the best team this year. Lamar Jackson isn't going anywhere. Trevor Lawrence is young. CJ Stroud is a fucking stud rookie. Justin Herbert, if he gets the right coach with all that talent in Los Angeles, the Chargers are going to be a team to be reckoned with. This is not boding well for Josh Allen. This is 4 straight years where they were, they had their window and they can't get over that Patrick Mahomes hump. And I said this is just a theory of mine. But if I was Buffalo's general manager or owner, let's just say I was the owner of the Pagula family, I would have called Jim Harbaugh after that game last night and said, we will do whatever we have to do to follow the rules, but we will give you the biggest contract in the history of the NFL to coach if you would come coach Buffalo next week. and next year, and I would have fired McDermott. And I am not, I am not for firing coaches. That is not what I do. The dude's been in the playoffs 5 straight years. He's an 11, 12 win team every year. But something's not working. Something isn't working. Josh Allen had 50 touchdowns this year. 50! But something's not working with McDermott. The fake punt was kind of weird. They got bailed out with the fumble out of bounds. Like, I'm not putting anything on the kicker, dude. Your play calling put Tyler Bass in that situation to kick a 45-yarder in the wind when it was 10 degrees outside in Buffalo. Like, it shouldn't come down to that. But something has to change there because it's not going to get any easier. It's an uphill battle from here on out for Josh Allen to even get to a conference championship game. What are your thoughts?
I mean, if you look at it too, they barely made the playoffs this year.
Yeah.
I mean, up until the last week of the year, they were either win the division in that game against Miami or miss out on the playoffs. So, they backdoored their way in after a terrible start, and then had the ability to get home field advantage, and they were clicking at the right time. They had the advantage of getting the Chiefs at home and a Chiefs team that was depleted compared to years past. Yeah, some of the play calling certainly strange. I mean, I don't know if I go get Harbaugh, but yeah, sure. I don't know if that makes the difference, but yeah, it is a shame for Josh Allen. The way he plays, he makes so many incredible plays on the field. You're just like, how is that even possible? I texted you at one point last night, and I was like, how far did he just throw that? It was in the fourth quarter, and he just chucked it down the field. I mean, he must have chucked it 60 yards down the field. I mean, a freaking bullet, and Diggs just missed it. It came in so hot that Diggs just missed it. And yeah, the play calling at the end of the game was odd. They said, the fake punt because Kansas City only had 10 guys on the field, but okay, but I don't know. The decision to run it to the left side, it was strange. And then, they had been running the ball so well the entire game. And I know Kansas City started stacking the box, but, then Josh Allen all of a sudden can't, make completions. I don't know. I don't know what was going on. It was strange. Something, you're right, isn't working. They can't beat him. There's too many good quarterbacks in that league. And, the Dolphins are still going to be good next year. The Jets, Aaron Rodgers, by the way, I don't think you mentioned him. He's going to be back next year in the same division. So, it is not an easy road to get back to this point. And I feel terrible for the Bills fans. At one point after the game, they showed this one guy, and he was just hysterically crying on the side. And I felt for him. I'm like, dude, it's a football game. You kind of got to stop. But at the same time, I'm like, the pain that these people have felt for so many years, it really just sucks. It really sucks for them. But hey, congrats to the Chiefs. They did it. They got it done. Now they're going to go meet the Ravens in Baltimore. I think the Ravens are going to beat them up pretty good. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, that Diggs catch, that Diggs drop, I should say. He threw it, I think it was from his own 20, and Diggs was somewhere in the vicinity of the 15 when that ball hit him in the hands. Yeah. So that means, what is that? That's 65, 70 yards 65 in the
yards
air.
On a line?
On a fucking rope. And it literally went through his hands.
And not
it went
coming
right
down.
Through his hands.
It was still going straight.
Yeah. It went right through his hands. The other issue with the play calling that I had, and I think it ultimately came down to Buffalo's defense just not being able to stop Mahomes. You can't blitz the guy. He's the best ever against the blitz. You can't blitz him. But they were literally marching down the field. They get to the 2-minute warning, and then Josh Allen on 2nd and 9, when you want to keep the clock running, the whole point was to keep the clock running so you didn't give the ball back to Mahomes with time. And on 2nd and 9, he literally missed 2 wide open receivers. Diggs and Shakir were both wide open over the middle of the field. He almost looked like he threw it in between, like he went to throw it, and he didn't know who to throw it to because Shakir was wide open in the end zone and Diggs was wide open in the middle underneath, and the ball fell in between both of them with nobody around. Like he had a wide open completion, either for the touchdown or the first down. Clock would have kept running. Kansas City would have had to burn their timeouts. It would have been a chip shot field goal versus a 45-yarder, or it would have been a touchdown if Diggs doesn't drop the pass or if he hits Shakir in the end zone. The defense ultimately let him down. They didn't stop anybody. They couldn't stop Mahomes all night long. The Kansas City punter punted one time, I think, for the entire night, maybe a second time towards the end of the game. And it is Buffalo fans, man. You feel for them. You have to feel for them. So many heartbreaking losses, more than any other team in the history of the NFL. They have the most losses in like huge, crucial games. I mean, every team, great team, has bad losses, right? But nobody like the Niners. This is their third straight NFC Championship game. They lost the last two on heart. Last year wasn't a heartbreaker because Purdy got hurt, and they were just nothing. McCaffrey was playing quarterback, but the year before that, they blew a fourth quarter lead, and the Rams beat them by a field goal, kind of thing. So. But yeah, Buffalo's fans, you mentioned that guy crying, dude. Get over it. It's football, man. Move the fuck on. You have a life to live. But you're right. Baltimore took care of Houston. The other side of the bracket, both games were up for grabs. The Niners, the better roster won. The better team on the night didn't. The Packers were better than them all night long and everywhere on the field, except turnovers.
All night.
Except turnovers. Love threw 2 picks. Mm-hmm. Purdy didn't turn it over. And the Packers dropped 2 picks. You know what I mean? So that's really came out to be the difference there.
Yes. Yes.
It was the turnovers at the end of the game that killed Love. What are you doing? Listen, he's not a rookie, but he's kind of a rookie. He sat behind Rodgers. But as you all know, he could have picked up 7, 8, 10 yards, got out of bounds, clock would have stopped. They only needed a field goal. They didn't need a touchdown, and he threw the ball across his body, falling away into 3 defenders, no wide receiver anywhere near him. It's weird. Niners got bailed out. Debo may not play this week, 50-50. Detroit at home is a different team than Detroit on the road. But then again, Tampa Bay, 2 Baker Mayfield interceptions cost them. That game came down to turnovers, right? They lost by a touchdown. Baker Mayfield threw a terrible pick to end the game. I'm sure that's the worst throw of his career that he ever wanted back, with the linebacker just spying him over the middle and just picked him off. But Detroit at home is different than Detroit on the road. But it's going to be an interesting matchup. I wanted to bring up back episode 78 was our preview show for the year. And we did our Super Bowl picks prior to the season starting. And my pick was San Francisco versus the Chiefs. Yours was the Bills and the Cowboys, which you could argue were the 2 best teams and the 2 most talented teams. And they're out. My pick is still alive, but I am with you. I feel the Ravens. It's hard to beat Mahomes, man. The kid's the best quarterback we've ever seen talent-wise. It's hard to beat him, but for him to go, dude, Lamar's hot. Baltimore, and what the thing that Baltimore does better than anybody else is they get pressure to the quarterback without blitzing, and that's what you can't do. You can't blitz Mahomes, and they only ever send 4. They usually drop back, and they're amazing in the secondary. And Mahomes, it is a year with not a lot of weapons, so we'll see what happens. But if Baltimore can get to Mahomes only rushing 4, it's going to be a long day for Kansas City. I'm going to stay with my pick. I think the 49ers are going to beat Detroit at home, and I'm going to think, for pick's sake, I'm going to stay with Kansas City, but I would not be surprised if Baltimore beats them rather handily.
No, I mean, I've seen a news outlet post out that the halftime show is set for the Ravens 49ers Super Bowl matchup. So I'm going to go Ravens 49ers. I think it's already said and done. I don't think there's why even play the games at this point. Apparently it's already signed, sealed, delivered. So enjoy your NFC Championship appearance and win. When you beat the Lions, somehow it'll happen. You'll be in the Super Bowl against the Baltimore Ravens, and I can't wait to see that happen. It's gonna be a great game.
I brought it up beforehand. This is interesting. If the Ravens and the Niners do make the Super Bowl, back in 2012 when the Ravens beat the Niners in the Super Bowl, they played a Thanksgiving night game that year. It was a primetime national TV holiday game. And Baltimore beat San Francisco in a primetime. It was Jim versus John. And then they ended up playing in the Super Bowl. Would it be not ironic if this year, same thing, Ravens played in a primetime holiday game, which was the Christmas night game, which the Ravens walled up the 49ers. Purdy threw 4 picks. If it ends up being the Super Bowl matchup again, that would just be kind of ironic. I do remember you sending me the picture of the news outlet already saying it's Ravens-Niners. So maybe it is.
Yeah, I mean, hey, it kind of goes back to the thing when all the news organizations out there were saying the same COVID narrative. They were all saying the exact same things. You chop it all, everything is exactly the same. So they're getting communication from somewhere. I think somebody just slipped up here. I don't know if you're as far down the rabbit hole of the NFL is rigged as I am, because I really do think it's rigged. But as a 49er fan, it's really got to make you wonder, because you've always questioned, like, how does Shanahan at the end of the games just collapse like this? Like what happens? They just collapse. Well, it's part of the script. That's what I believe. It's part of the script.
Yeah, Shanahan is notorious. Love the guy. Brilliant offensive mind. Comes from a great Super Bowl winning Hall of Fame coach dad. It's just in his blood, dude. The dude's a stud. But offense coordinator of the Falcons, 28-3 loss. 10-point Super Bowl lead against the Chiefs in 19, loss. 10-point lead against the Rams in the NFC Championship 2 years ago, dropped interception, loss, which would have sealed the game. And then last year, obviously, the injury doesn't matter. It didn't matter because the injury to Purdy ended it anyways right there before it even began. So I don't understand. I've said it for years to you, to everybody. Shanahan, I don't understand what he does. He tries to get fucking cute when the Niners are the best running football team in the league, and they have been for 5 straight years. Since Kyle Shanahan became the coach of the 49ers, it's 5 seasons. 4 seasons he's been to the NFC Championship game as the best running football team. And then once again against the Packers, soaking wet, pouring game. What are we doing? All of a sudden we're throwing the ball. Purdy already, you saw it. He couldn't grip the football, but we're just chucking it. You got McCaffrey, but we're just chucking the football down the fucking field in the pouring rain. Makes sense. But no, I don't know if he overthinks it, or I am definitely not down the rabbit hole like you are in terms of scripting the games. I think there is some shenanigans that go on. It was proven in the NBA a few years back that refs do alter games purposely for cash behind their back. I'm not saying the NFL is like that. Like, you're definitely you're more concrete in that belief. But I would not. I don't 100% disown that opinion either. You know what I mean?
Well, we'll see what happens in the next week, and then on to the Super Bowl. It's going to be interesting, but I'm looking forward to it. I still watch. I don't know why, but I still watch.
Yeah, it's okay. It is what it is. We'll see. Hey, I hope the Niners get there. We'll see.
Hey, I just want. We don't have this in the show, but I just want to talk about it because it's great. UConn Huskies, baby. Number 1 in the country again. This is week number 2 that they'll be number 1. First time since, I think, back in 2009 that they've been ranked number 1 in the country. So, yeah, pretty awesome to see them back. They lost major pieces from that championship team last year, and they have completely reloaded and are really good. So, kudos to the Huskies, number 1 in the country. Yes.
Yeah, very impressed. Villanova win was a big win. I didn't think it would be that close because Villanova's not that good. But listen, every road game, I think Hurley said every game in the Big East is a test of your manhood. Are you a man or not? Because going to Philadelphia at the Wells Fargo Center there where the Sixers play, it's a tough place to play, man. And they're doing it. Hurley, they passed every test that Hurley gives to them. You know what I mean? And let's see if they can keep this run going because they do not play a meaningful ranked opponent until the middle of February. So we'll just have to wait and see how this next stretch of 4 or 5 goes. If they can just handle it and take care of business or what. But Hurley has them in the right mindset. We are the defending national champions. I don't care what anybody says. We are the best team in the country. I don't want to hear this Purdue bullshit. Everyone Purdue this. When they win a tournament game, talk to me.
Yeah. Yeah, so. I don't think there's any doubt that UConn should be the favorite to win the national championship and go back-to-back for the first time since Florida did it with Billy Donovan.
Yep, you're absolutely correct. You got anything else in the show today, or are we going to wrap this puppy up?
Let's wrap it up, man. This is a good one.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks for listening, as always. Download the show. Give us a review. Give us a 5-star review if you love the show, if you hate the show. Tell us what's going on. We, like I said, we keep churning out episodes. We want to grow this thing. So, Dave, take us home.
Get out there, continue to live the full forest life. We'll see you next week, and see what the Super Bowl is.